Okay, I just finished watching the Miraculous movie, and I'm gonna say this. After I hear, and I did watch other people's reviews on it, and I had my expectations a bit low because of how everybody says it, but I am just in shock and in awe how good this movie is. You guys should see this movie. That's it. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. It's not perfect to say the least, but in this review, I'm gonna say what is good and what stuff that could be a little lacking in some places. But overall, if you really just want my own opinion, I say that this movie is really good. Just really good. Man. So for this movie review, it's gonna be a bit more different than how I review like the actual series for Miraculous. Reviews I do for the series for Miraculous Ladybug are a bit different, as I say. They'll basically summarize the whole thing and give my thoughts and opinions into that episode, basically. For this movie review, and I'm going to review this as a movie, and it's going to be much more different than I have reviewed the show. I know I said that already, but I'm going to say it again. The reason why? Well, it's a movie. If I explain the whole movie, I will put a lot of spoilers, and well, I think you would know the rest, right? It's just a lot of stuff, a lot of spoilers, and we're gonna be here for a long time if I had treated it like maybe 2 hours to explain everything. So I'm not gonna force you to watch through all that. But we do have a few categories, and the categories that we are gonna be doing here are these. We're gonna talk about the voice acting. We're gonna talk about the character models, the animations, the writing, and of course, the story. And oh boy, the story is both good and bad, but not in the way you think. Maybe in both ways. I really don't know. Oh, and let's not forget about the music. Without further ado, let's begin. Let's talk about the music first, shall we? There are a lot of new songs and a lot of music in this movie. The music used is very good, and to be honest, there is some little remixes or at least of slight renditions of the ones in the show, but the majority of these are all mostly original, at least to what I heard. But the biggest talk of the music is just the songs. The screen you see here basically is part of Hawk Moth's villain song, and Jesus Christ, the villain song, really good. Wow. It's not the best, but it's very enjoyable to say the least. And just hearing Hawk Moth's voice actor, imagine if Zhang Li can sing, Jesus Christ, you know? But yeah, I think if I remember correctly, there's about at least maybe 10 different songs, with 3 of them being basically either a remix or a parody of a song that's already been made in the movie. No, in the show, I mean. Like, you know, the theme song, which is parodied, and then you have the remix of the theme song, and then you have one song that I think it's also a parody, or maybe it's just a instrumental. I really don't exactly know, but a lot of the soundtrack for the movie, the songs, the music, is all original, except for one. There is one which is a actual license music, but it's only been used for gags. It's a very weird song choice for that, but once you hear it in the movie, it's a bit weird on the second try, but on the first try, it was just for comedic effect. But it kind of like took me aback because I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that. But yeah, overall, all the music, there is no problems with the music whatsoever, except for the licensed one. There's only one licensed song in this, and it's only played for like 10 seconds. That's it, twice. And that's fine by me, because it's just for a gag. Other than that, music is 10 out of 10 for me. Let's move on to the next one, and I should say is the character models. The character models are basically spot on, well, almost spot on, to basically how the characters from the show look like. Adrian Marinette, Nino, they all look kind of the same. Marinette's mother, Gabriel Gress, Natalie looks almost exactly the same as their original counterparts. The only few people that look different is Marinette's father, Chloe, Alia, and that's technically about it, all the more important characters basically. Also there's Sabrina, but Sabrina looks almost exactly like her original counterpart, which is actually pretty nice honestly. All the character models look pretty good. In terms of being animated, well, I'll say this, since animating for character models is a bit different than animation in general, which I'll get to it after this, but the character animations is a bit jarring, to say the least. But once you get to basically past the halfway point, or at least the first quarter of the movie, after the first quarter of the movie at least, you get used to the models and the animations for the models don't look as janky, but I think that's only because most people watch the show and not the movie first, so it would be a bit jarring. But for people who didn't watch the show and just watching the movie, it's gonna be pretty fine. The animations for the characters are very fluid for their models as well. Not too stretchy, not too cartoony, a bit more realistic, and to be honest, that's fine by me. And in terms of newer characters, they all look pretty good too, and they all just look really good. I have no idea, there's nothing else, because like they're based off their original characters. They're not based off of anything. Like this character right here, basically, like you see, unless I'm mistaken, but I don't think we ever saw this character in the show, and I'm hoping we do see this character in the show because she looks really good and a very interesting villain to say the least. If you want to know who she pairs up with, because she is in a pair, she pairs up with the OP villain, Mr. Mime, or the Mime. I don't know if it's called Mr. Mime or the Mime, but the Mime in the show is kind of OP considering how his power works, and in this one, it's a bit nerfed down for movie's sake, but Jesus Christ, it's good to see this guy, and I'll say this, he is more intimidating in this movie than in the show, maybe just because he's more bulkier, and his face has more expression, you know. The only problem with the character models, I would say, that I have a problem with, I know I may be a little redundant there, but I think Master Fu and Marinette's dad do look a tiny bit jarring. I got used to Marinette's dad, and the more the time goes on through the movie, he does become a bit more similar to his counterpart in the show. But to be honest, it's fine for them to be different. But the very first few shots that we see the father is a bit jarring, and for me personally. But for Master Fu, he is just a tiny bit, how I say this, I don't know, I feel like he's a bit, I don't know, I guess I'm just too used to his model from the show, but he does look a little too wrinkly, but that's just me, and to be honest, I can tell that they're trying to be a bit more realistic. And in terms of animations, we'll get to that soon. It actually makes sense for these character models to follow the animation style for this one. So without further ado, let's get to the animations. Oh, and for character models, 8 to 9 out of 10 honestly. They're really good. There are some slight problems, but I'm not going to get too deep into it, and it's just nitpicks, but the character models look really good, especially all the background characters look really good, especially with the side characters, who are not important in the movie, by the way. They're just there for recognizability or something like that, but still pretty good. All models are good, except for Alia. Alia looks a little very weird without her long hair, but you know, it is what it is. Animation, how much to say? The animation is just stunning. The settings, the lighting, the expressions, everything is just beautifully well done. And if you've seen in the screenshots, it's just really well done. The mooding, the lighting, all that stuff. I could gush about this the whole time. And yes, I'm not that well diverse in animation, but I will say this, the animation in this movie rivals a lot of top tier Pixar and DreamWorks movies. I'm admitting that right now. The animation for this movie rivals that of DreamWorks and Pixar movies. They're just that good. It's like just eye candy, a sight to behold. And if you're not gonna watch this for the show, for like the plot, watch it for the animation. It is really well done. And to be honest, I kind of wish the show has this type of animation, which it does at times. It's just I wish it was more consistent. But as a movie, it makes sense for them to have a higher budget. And I don't blame the show for being a lower quality because they have a lot of things to take care of there. But whew, they brought in the A game, their A game for this, honestly. My favorite lighting scene is this one. With this, and I do have a second favorite. The second favorite is another scene. I'll put it on the screen soon. But this is my very favorite scene here. The lighting, the textures is just so well done here. And this one. This is my second favorite shot in the movie. Honestly, it is so well. It's just so well done. I just love the lighting here. Overall animation, even with the music scores, it's just 10 out of 10. It is just that good. Now, let's get into the writing. And I'm gonna say this, the writing isn't that bad, but it does show its holes in this movie. Now, what are these holes? Well, here's the thing. This movie has a syndrome which I like to call the multiple plot syndrome. There is a lot of plots going on in this movie, and sadly, a few of those plots are just kind of out the window, basically. The main two plots that were basically very consistent, and thank God they're very consistent, is basically the Marinette character arc. The Marinette character arc in this movie is really well done. And yes, the pacing could use a little work, but it's just really well done nonetheless. The romance of this movie is done better than the show, but to be honest, it's a movie, so that love thing with how the show treated was like a few years, and this one they have like an hour or so they had to cram it in. But to be honest, it's written much better. And if the love plot for this movie transferred to the show, I think most of us would have been much more happier. And the final one is basically Hawk Moth's plot, basically on his descent into villainy, and it's his redemption arc, basically. And I'm gonna say that one is a bit weak, but it's fine nonetheless. And if you're wondering if that's actually real in the movie, spoilers, kind of is, but you gotta watch the movie yourself, because I am not gonna explain how it resolves. Just let you guys know, it is there, and it's a very emotional one, at least to me. Damn it, I think I spoiled more of it, so please just watch it, okay? I don't want to spoil more for you guys. But there are other plot points that are not important, and I will say those. The plot of Marinette's dad being an embarrassment to Marinette. That one technically didn't go anywhere and was left unresolved halfway through the movie. So yeah, it was just a dead plot point, and I thought it was very interesting, but it didn't continue from there. It's kind of a little sad, honestly. We do have the plot point for Aya and Nino, except it's very minuscule, and to be honest, it seems like at the very end of the movie they do get together, and I think it's kind of expected. But if you watch this movie for yourself and expecting maybe a, like a B plot treatment for these two, no, not really. The main focus is basically with Marinette, Adrien, and Hawk Moth. How the show should be, according to everybody else. But I must remind you guys that the show focuses mostly on the side characters, because those were given much more treatment to basically know who are these characters, what do they do, and then their arc, kind of technical arc throughout that episode, with Marinette and Adrien basically getting a bit more character development. Very minuscule in amount of character development in the show, but that is because the show mainly focuses on side characters, and that's actually pretty good, because to be honest, I like shows which do that. But for the movie, it explains more about Marinette and Adrian and Hawk Moth, basically. So that's actually pretty good for a movie standard. Because if the movie just focuses on side characters, that's not good. So thankfully, they didn't go through that route. But yeah, this plot point was kind of dead. The main plot point, of course, is Marinette's character arc. Her arc throughout the whole movie is basically finding herself, not being afraid to try, and she doesn't need to be Ladybug to be a hero. She can be her own hero, and those are pretty good. Also, the main thing about this is the power of teamwork and love. Makes sense because it's a message for little kids, but it's a good message nonetheless. It's very good, and how it's executed in the movie, top notch, at least in my opinion. Not exactly too good, but it's not like a thing that shoves into your brain, okay? So that's pretty good. Overall, all the plots, the plots, for the writing for the plots is not that well, and how the movie is been paced is not really well. If I'm gonna say about the pacing, how the movie is paced is kind of alright, although the edits for the pacing could use a bit more work. And I would say this has the Super Mario movie syndrome, and I don't mean the very old one, I mean the most new one, you know, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The one where Mario saves his brother Luigi with Peach being a badass and, you know, Bowser being the most funniest villain ever. Yeah, comparing this movie to the Mario movie, they're really both similar, very similar in how the plot is structured. Not full out copying, but how it's pacing. It's not the plot, it's mostly just the pacing. The pacing of the plot is very similar, and it's almost really hard to follow this movie. To be honest, like for the Mario movie, and I'm gonna say this, the Mario movie was actually a little hard to follow, since because it's like jump to the next scene, 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 no breathing room. In this movie, it is almost exactly the same. The only difference is that while the Miraculous movie, like the Mario movie, you just jump to the next scene, jump to the next scene, jump to the next scene, basically in a few minutes span. You get like some context in this scene, and you get another context with a different character in this scene, and you come back to the character, and then transfer back to a different character. It's so on and so forth. It works for an episode, technically speaking, if it's done right, but for a movie, it is a bit jarring. The only thing that saves this movie from falling to the pacing of the Mario movie is the music. The songs in the movie does save this movie from the pacing of the plot 50% of the time. It's not a perfect thing, but the music does actually help. The songs though. The songs, not the actual like, it's not like the background music, it's more the songs that actually help this movie along. Overall, how the movie's written, in terms of plot, 7 out of 10 is very average. The plot written here is very average for a movie, and is pretty much above average compared to the show. The pacing, however, the pacing could use a lot of work. In my honest opinion, is a 5 out of 10. Very super mid-level. It's still good and it's still watchable, but I'll say this. Compared to the Mario movie, the pacing in this movie is much better. But I guess technically speaking, with the songs actually helping this movie, the pacing is just taking out the songs. The movie's pacing is going to be very similar to the Mario movie, and maybe even worse if it's not thanks to the songs that actually save the movie's pacing a tiny bit. And again, it only works 50% of the time, so your viewing might vary on that type of pacing, but overall, very good. Just good on plots, pretty much above average. Average to movie standards, above average to the show. The pacing pretty much sucks, but it's only saved from the music. Without the music, it really would suck. And that's kind of about it for this movie review. Overall, I really do freaking love this movie. The animation is 100% what you should be watching for. The story, if you're fine with like average stories in movies, like I don't know, think of maybe any average movie you will call. Any movie you recall that has an average plot, basically an average story to tell. This one is it. The story is good, enjoyable, not groundbreaking, not bad, not terrible. Very good, very average, very enjoyable. The animation is something that you should be watching for if you don't want to know for the plot. If you don't like the series, just watch it for the animation. I mean, Jesus Christ, I cannot explain how good this is. And this is something that I wish Pixar kind of went back to from the good old days, where their animation is a tiny bit realistic but cartoony enough that it actually works, to be honest. I don't know if it makes sense, but to be honest, I think it sounds better in my own head, so I really don't know. But in terms of maybe DreamWorks quality, this is like pretty much DreamWorks quality here as well. Although I would say like maybe modern in a way, but not exactly. I don't know. It's like DreamWorks meets Pixar. That's all I'm gonna say. But there is two other things I want to say: the ending and the post-credit scene. Oh, and let's not forget how similar this movie is to a different franchise. So I'm gonna talk about those three. It may be 4, but keep it tuned. But if you don't want to be spoiled, hop off the video now. My overall opinion, watch the movie. Very good, 9 out of 10. Not the most groundbreaking, and maybe not the best movie of the year. It is not the best movie of the year, I'll assure you for that. But it is a very good movie, please watch it. I mean, it's very good. Yeah, but I mean, like, I will say this, I will recommend Puss in Boots: The Last Wish over this. That's my honest opinion. I'm a bit sad I said that, but that's my honest opinion. Okay, we're going to spoiler territory. Super spoiler territory for the end of the movie. If you watch the movie or you don't freaking care, we can continue. If not, your last chance to hop the video right now. Right now. You're still here? Good. Okay, let's continue. So the ending of this movie is just really, really good, bad, but very emotional. That's all I'm gonna say. And I'm not gonna go too much, but here's the gist of the ending, basically. At least the beginning of the end. Hawk Moth basically was told by his own son that his father was basically gone years ago. That the man in front of him is not the man, is the same man as he used to be. Hawk Moth Gabriel transformed into a Hawk Moth. His heart is black right now, or at least the darkest heart, you would say. And he puts it in a Kuma, right? And let me see if I can actually find this other picture. He basically using a Kuma, and then he finally does something that the show Hawk Moth never does. He akumatized himself. And I should say this, the akumatization in the movie looks really painful compared to what the show predicts or interprets. But yeah, Hawk Moth, for the first time ever, basically akumatized himself. Unfortunately, it's in the movie. But if he does it in the show, I mean, he kind of did akumatize himself in the show from the season 2 finale. But this is much more different since this is him doing it, not a third party. But let's continue going. And to be honest, after this, let's just say man became God that day. He has 2 big, massive electric cloud wings with a bunch of Akumas flying around, causing havoc, creating thunderstorms all around all of Paris. And man, this is my 3rd favorite shot of the movie. just the fire, the destruction. It's just on like an apocalypse right now in Paris. And basically Hawk Moth right now is just uber powerful at this point. Ladybug here soon to basically save at least a child and their parental adult basically from harm's way from a swarm of Akumas basically. And then later tries to hold back this massive explosion. But unfortunately she failed at that department. She got knocked back from the blast from trying to contain the blast, but it didn't work. After this, Cat Noir finally shows up from his sulking. I will not explain why he's sulking. He was at his room, and then he just pulled off a... He really just pulled off a Deku. Just pushing his leg as hard as he can, breaking the sound barrier and saving Ladybug. It's just like how the Izuku Midoriya would do. Jesus Christ, well we had to have like My Hero reference in there somewhere, right? Cat Noir basically tries to climb up the Eiffel Tower, dodging all Hawk Moth's attacks and attacking Hawk Moth himself. Unfortunately, this kind of fails. Hawk Moth pushes him to the floor of the Eiffel Tower, at least the tippy top of it. And then since Cat Noir did activate his Cataclysm, and I must remind you, this is the first time Cat Noir activated his special power. And I would also say that this is, and I would say this, Ladybug never uses Lucky Charm in this movie yet. Maybe in the next movie. I'll talk about that later. But either way, yeah, this is the first time for Cat Noir. And here's the thing. It looks really much like the symbiote just kind of came out from his hand, and then like this covers the whole Eiffel Tower, and then it explodes. Well, explodes, fall apart, basically separately. I mean, like, you know, you take what you will, and then yeah, that's about it. There's more to it, but that's all I would say for this. After Cat Noir fell into the water, and Marinette and then Ladybug basically saving Cat Noir from drowning, Hawk Moth, without touching the water, turned the water into lava. Yes, this is why I say he is God, because the mere presence of him, he can change to whatever what he wants at will, basically. Except for stuff that's plot convenient. But, you know, he is basically God. He turned water into lava. I think that's very impressive, honestly. And that's kind of where I'm gonna stop, because I don't want to spoil you guys the complete ending of this fight. Now, I will say this, that the ending of this fight is actually pretty much emotional. If you've been following the series for long enough, knowing that a possible outcome from the fandom that they wish the show kind of did, but also it was a joke, actually made it into this movie. It is a very good and an emotional scene. And I say this, let's just say that Hawk Moth is Hawk Moth no more after this movie. How? I'll leave it up to you to decide, but I would recommend watching the movie if you want to know why Hawk Moth is Hawk Moth no more. Unless you watched the movie already. I'm just gonna let you know we do get some background story, some revelation on why Hawk Moth is doing this at the end. And it's really, really emotional. In terms for me, I feel this is pretty much very emotional. Not the same emotion, but it's like almost makes me tear up. Which is not as, yeah. If a movie basically almost makes me tear up, it's just a very good emotional scene. If it doesn't for you, it makes sense. It's emotional feelings are different for everybody. But for me, I almost teared up with this one, and especially with Gabriel's voice acting, and then the revelation, and Jesus Christ. If you know, you know, but I cannot say more because of the spoilers. I don't want to spoil this ending for you. But what I will spoil is the after credits. Oh yeah, one thing. If you want to know, do Marinette and Adrien kiss in this movie? The answer is maybe. It's only at the very end. And even so, the fandom can catch a break, they were going to. But just that 1 second and everything would have been fine. But no, that they just after doing that, they just put the end. We would never know if they actually kissed or not, but it's implied that they did. Kinda wish we saw on screen though. So basically, after this, we do have one other thing. The scene after the end. Natalie basically is going to go to Gabriel's hidden quarters, basically, the secret door. Now, Natalie already knows about this secret, but to be honest, for people who didn't actually watch the show, will be surprised about this. But since Gabriel is not Hawk Moth anymore, we have this scene. And while it's assumed, if you guys didn't watch the show, well, it's assumed that the mother's been dead, somewhere buried. She is not. She is in the basement, sitting on a rose bush, a rose nest, a rose bed. I don't know. But as you can see here, she does have the Peacock Miraculous. And my prediction is that we are going to have the sequel movie. This is sequel bait, basically, for anybody who actually watches the movie. This is sequel bait, and I predict that Natalie is going to be the second villain for the second movie. The second villain for the second movie. Because Hawk Moth in this movie is gone. Done. He is done, basically. But it's going to be very interesting. I would say I cannot wait for the second movie. I'm just hoping that the writing and the pacing is just much better in the second movie, because Jesus Christ, could have been done better. And that's about it. Overall, again, I really love this movie, and I recommend to all of you to watch this movie, if not for the series, if not for the plot. Watch it for the animation itself. It is very good and beautiful. And to be honest, I kind of wish more animation studios are competing with top-notch animation like with Pixar and with DreamWorks, basically. I kind of wish, and to be honest, it's been such a long time since I've seen a movie that is this stunning, honestly. Now, I will say this, and to be honest, I think I know the reason why this movie actually looks the way it is. If you guys haven't noticed, the movie basically... Well, okay, let me just start a little bit from here. And there is some history, basically. The reason why the movie looks the way it is because of one thing. This movie is technically also been done with the Disney team. A few of, and now I cannot confirm this, but I am willing to bet that some of the Disney teams, the Disney animators, actually came in and helped animating this movie. The reason why? Well, if you guys didn't know, either the next season of the show or season 7 of Miraculous, Disney is going to fully, and I do mean fully, acquire the license for the movie unless the creator does something about it. That is all. Also, that's basically the reason why the movie is like that. I forgot one other thing, and it is a little bit jarring, but I'll keep this brief. This whole movie seems... I cannot really tell, because the thing is that this whole movie basically feels like a Spider-Man movie. For some strange reason, this feels like a Spider-Man movie. And now I know. A lot of people kind of make the connection that Ladybug and Spider-Man are very similar. But I'll say this, that these characters are not that similar. And besides of being a little like bug theme and, you know, they swing around the city and stuff like that. And yes, the heroism is about the same, but if I'm gonna say this, is that this is really almost similar to basically how a Spider-Man movie is, and specifically, this movie feels like a mixture of the MCU Spider-Man and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. And the reason why is because of Marinette's reactions, the action of this scene, basically, the very beginning of the scene, and basically the first half of the movie. The first half of the movie feels like a Spider-Man thing. And there's a reason for that. And let me give you a little history. Back in the day, people were able to basically get out a vote. What type of Miraculous movie do you guys want to see? Do you guys want to see a musical or live action? They already got stuff for live action. However, a few people, a lot of people say they want to see a musical because they don't want to have that little show to live action thing. And it's Netflix, the Netflix live action adaptation. You know how bad that sounds nowadays? That's the reason why nobody voted for that. But here's the thing, I bet you, because of how the first half of this movie is written, it was supposed to be very similar to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Like Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie. I feel like the live-action Ladybug movie would have been very much the same in terms of plot or tone as the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, but maybe a bit more kid-friendly. Because, you know, this is a kid show and it has to be kid-friendly. But I mean, I don't know, they could go dark. And they kind of almost did with this movie, so who am I to judge? But yeah, that's kind of about it. And yeah, that's about it. That's the reason why it's like a bit Spider-Man-esque, is because the live action movie was supposed to be similar to Spider-Man. And to be honest, you could really feel it. But the reason why I said the first half is only because that after the initial montage that comes in between, the second half of the movie feels like a genuine Miraculous episode. A very good, high-quality Miraculous episode. And that's the highest honor I could give. In terms of a movie, it's still pretty good as a movie. It's just like, you know, again, above average for possibly an average movie. Who knows? What can I say? It's my opinion, right? So, that's about it. My name is Sun Po. And again, go watch the movie. Because one thing's for sure, Master Fu is very funny in this movie. And when the scene gets emotional, it does get emotional. Maybe not in a strong way, but you can feel it in your heart at least. Hopefully. But yeah, overall, movie is basically a 8 to 9 out of 10 for me. And that's it. I'm Sun Po. And I'll see you guys next time, where we're gonna go back to review the next episode in the series. So yeah, until then, go watch the movie. Truly recommended. If not for the story or the series, the animation alone, yeah.